Now what, Mitch? That is the focus of tonight's angle. Now it's time to celebrate Mitch McConnell for securing a 9th term as Senate GOP leader.
I hope you're ready for your big birthday surprise, because here it comes!
Well, maybe not. Newt Gingrich appearing with us last night laid into the senior senator from Kentucky for failing to rally the GOP troops before Election Day.
I think Mitch McConnell, more than any single person, cost us control of the Senate. Fact is, Mitch McConnell runs a Mitch McConnell PAC and then raises the money as though he's going to fight for control of the Senate. He's fighting for Mitch McConnell, not for the Republican Party.
Well, of course, Gingrich is correct, and his assessment was confirmed when McConnell shared his theory about why Republicans suffered some disappointing losses in the midterms.
We underperformed among independents and moderates because their impression of many of the people in our party in leadership roles is that they're involved in chaos, negativity, excessive attacks, and it frightened independent and moderate Republican voters.
Now, someone please explain to me how exactly McConnell's assessment is different from what Pelosi or Schumer would say about the GOP.
Non-MAGA Republicans will join with us and work in a bipartisan way to get the kinds of things we got done in the last 2 years. If they continue to embrace MAGA, they're going to lose. And this election showed that that is not where the American people are at. They're not at this extreme, election-denying, nasty, divisive, threatening violence.
Well, it must be pretty cool, right, for Schumer and all the liberals to see the GOP's party leadership use Democrat talking points to lambaste conservatives. Of course, the focus of McConnell's ire is not the Bush-Cheney-Romney wing of the party that's been losing since 2004. The focus of McConnell's ire is the populist movement that rejects that. But let's face it, Chuck does owe Mitch a heck of a lot. 18 Republicans led by McConnell made it possible for the Democrats to claim a bipartisan victory for that idiotic infrastructure bill. And as the Angle predicted, it was the glide path for Biden's climate change spendorama. Now, let's not forget the 15 Republican senators who helped Democrats pass a gun control bill this past summer. Now, how is it that Democrats rarely break ranks on big bills, but Republicans, they always seem to? But I got to say, that was yesterday. I don't want to dwell in the past. Now Republicans want results, and they also want inspiring leadership, a blueprint for the future that is clearly articulated and reflective of the views of a majority of Republican voters. And we're also looking for fighters who fight as hard as the left, always united against the opposition's agenda. Now, we're going to be holding everyone accountable for how the Republicans face these 4 major challenges. First, immigration amnesty. Now, nearly 5 million people have entered the country illegally since Biden was sworn in. And that's not even including the countless gotaways that they weren't even able to apprehend. But the Democrats are just getting started. And now that the election is over, it is not surprising in the slightest that they're trying to fast-track immigration amnesty now with a novel theory.
We have a population that is not reproducing it on its own with the same level that it used to. The only way we're going to have a great future in America is if we welcome and embrace immigrants, the dreamers, and all of them, because our ultimate goal is to help the dreamers, but get a path to citizenship for all 11 million or however many undocumented there are here.
However many. Yeah, this is typical, by the way. As Americans are suffering and our kids are still dealing with the brain drain from COVID lockdowns, Democrats are most worried about helping those who game the system to get here. Now, amnesty is not going to do anything except act as a magnet to attract more migrants, if that's even possible. And yes, it is possible. And by the way, as he alluded to when he said, however many million are here, it's not 11 million. It's more like 25, 30 million.
We should all all of us share the same goal, and that is to take 11 million people out of the shadows, secure our borders, and make sure that this is a nation of opportunity and freedom.
I understand comprehensive immigration reform has to be tough, but it also has to be practical. Illegal immigrants, you will get a legal status.
Now, that was from the prior battles on immigration. And you hear it was 11 million back in 2009. Well, these were cynical efforts, and they divided the party, and they enraged the party's base, and ultimately they went down in flames, 2007, 2009, 2013. The voters now need to make it clear how they feel about this. If we even get a hint, and I'm talking about a hint, that McConnell plans to work with Schumer to ram some type of amnesty through. Which brings us to the next GOP big battle, abortion. If Schumer and the Democrats are really concerned about a dwindling population, should they be promoting more children? Yeah, but instead, they just want to codify Roe. Now, remember, to the left, being pregnant as a woman, well, that's more of a disease than a blessing.
You know, listen, women are getting pregnant every day in America, and this is a real issue, and we need to act with a sense of haste about what is at play, what is at stake.
Now, if Republicans squander the legal victory over the abomination of Roe, then shame on them. This would demoralize the base terribly in the United States. So I ask, where's Mitch on this? Even Biden doesn't think the left can pull it off.
I don't think there's enough votes to codify unless something happens unusual in the House. I think we're going to get very close in the House, but I think it's going to be very close, but I don't think we're going to make it.
And another crucial issue is our third battle, the war in Ukraine. Apparently, it's taxpayer money forever. The U.S. has already spent nearly $30 billion on aid to Ukraine, and now the Biden administration is requesting $37 billion more. Americans just can't afford to be dragged into a full-scale war with Russia, and not just for fiscal reasons. Now, 2 people were killed yesterday after a missile struck a Polish village. And, of course, Ukrainian President Zelensky immediately sought to ramp up the aggression.
The longer Russia feels impunity, the more threats there will be to anyone within reach of Russian missiles. To fire missiles at NATO territory, this is a Russian missile attack on collective security. This is a very significant escalation. We must act.
Of course, it was wrong. An intentional strike of a NATO country by Russia could have launched World War III. But thankfully, Poland wanted to know the truth before escalating anything, and its president said the blast was likely from a Ukrainian air defense missile. And when the U.S. did try to get answers from Russia, well, the counterpart of Mark Milley was unavailable.
Russia did not take the call.
Right. My staff was unsuccessful in getting me linked up with General Gerasimov. That's correct.
They think so little of us in the United States that Milley was not even able to get through to his Russian counterpart. Now, America could have been at the brink of war because of a Ukrainian mistake. Yet most Republicans seem to want to give Ukraine a blank check when they should be pushing for immediate peace talks with Russia. So where's Mitch? Then there's the Republicans' misguided attempt to throw a lifeline to Joe Manchin. Now, in a state that voted nearly 69% for Trump in 2020, Senator Manchin stabbed his own constituents in the back by supporting that climate bill. What's just as bad, though, is to get Manchin to support the bill, Democrats promised to speed up approvals for certain energy permits. Of course, it was a total bait and switch. We predicted it at the time, and Democrats broke their promise. Now some Republicans are proposing to rescue Manchin. Some of them apparently show an appetite for a matching deal, reports The Hill. Now, you can't make this up. Manchin already has a primary challenger in 2024, so all Republican efforts should move towards supporting that effort, not propping up Manchin. The odds are, though, McConnell will do the wrong thing here. Now, those are just a handful of the battles Republicans will have to face under Mitch McConnell's leadership. After losing the Senate and failing to win the House by a huge margin, Republican voters, they need assurances that the men leading the party are actually on their side. Now listen, Mitch McConnell is 80 years old. He has an opportunity over the next 2 years to cement his place in history as one of the strongest and most effective leaders the party has ever had. Now, he's already done a really good job on judges. Remember, Roe versus Wade was possible because of the judges that McConnell made sure were confirmed in the Senate. And he passed a bunch of legislation in the Trump era as well. Now, if he doesn't cement his position in history, alternatively, he can shun the populist movement and spend the next few years helping Biden, helping Schumer, helping Joe Manchin implement their agenda. And that will be done under the misguided presumption that this will help the party in 2024. This is what Republicans want. As long as it's called bipartisan, it has to be good.
My message to the administration, let's find some things between the 40-yard lines that we can agree on and do them.
My message to Senate Republicans is this: work with us.
Let me tell you, if this is McConnell's main focus, he should expect to be there on election night in 2024 watching Biden and Schumer celebrate another win. Now, even though we don't agree with Mitch McConnell on some key issues, we certainly realize at the Angle that he has the support among most of the Republicans in the Senate. And we want to work with him and his team to advance a positive agenda that will make America better for working-class Americans. Now, that is going to be the populist conservative agenda. It always has been. And we're going to be watching very closely to see what the Senate Republicans do next. And that's The Angle.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.